The pale and the black horses. We're reading from Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 through to 8. Let me look at verse 8 in particular. Let me read it to you. I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with sword and with famine and with pestilence and by wild beasts of the earth. Now, there are 7 seals that must be broken before the contents of the heavenly scroll in John's vision can be read and enacted, as according to Revelation 5:1-4. Now, having conquered sin, Satan and death, by his death and resurrection, the Lamb of God, Jesus, can break the seals, right? He has the authority to open the scroll, and he can enact the plan of God, especially in its final stages. He can fulfill all that the Father has purposed for him in the last days, the entire period between the first and the second coming of Christ. And we find this in Acts 2, 1-41. So as the seals are broken, we see things that must take place throughout this era. The first 2 seals released a horseman on a white horse and a horseman on a red horse who bring war and violence to the earth, right? This is Revelation 6, 1-4. So we should expect conflict until Jesus comes back. Now in Revelation 6, 5-6, describes the breaking of the 3rd seal, which releases a rider on a pale horse who announces prices for grain and calls for the preservation of oil and wine. Now, with respect to wheat and barley in verse 6, we have a situation of incredible price inflation. The cost is up to 16 times greater than the average price of grain in John's day. So there are economic problems in view here, likely caused by a shortage of grain, caused by famine, which often accompany wars. So the rider on the pale horse builds on what John has already said about the white and the red horse. But note that the oil and wine are spared. So this reflects a connection to John's original audience in Asia Minor, where oil and wine were important crops, but grain had to be imported. So the idea here seems to be that food shortages and economic problems will characterize the era before Christ returns in glory. But some food supplies represented by the oil and wine will remain. So God is tempering his judgment on the earth with grace, leaving some substances behind. We find the same principle of God's tempering his judgment appears also when the black horse and its rider are released in Revelation 6, 7-8. This rider on the black horse brings death, but only to 1/4 of the world's population. And likely we are not to think that exactly a quarter of the people of earth will die in God's judgment. Those numbers could be larger or smaller. The point is that some will survive. Sickness, famine, war will come and go throughout these last days from the birth of Jesus to his return. But they will not wipe out everyone on the planet. Christ is reigning, and he's set up boundaries beyond what destruction must not pass. So we don't want to undermine the severity of plagues and famines and wars and so forth. But these things cause real and terrible devastations. At the same time, we should not think that these things mean that life on earth will all come to an end. People will suffer indeed, but the Lord will not end all life through them. So we shouldn't fear that pandemics and food shortages or world wars mean that God is not in control, but the church will not survive them.